Hi, I am Marianne Tolliver, and I am the Director of Residential Navigation and Senior Services at the St. Louis Arc. I've been at the Arc for about 39 years, and most of my time has been spent in residential services, aging with the people that I was supporting. So they have taught me a lot about aging, and I look forward to um, sharing any of that kind of information with you, as well as I have a brother with a disability who, and there he is right there in the red shirt. His name is Richard. We refer to him as Richard or Dick. And so there's a lot of history there that I have with making decisions as to how we're going to move forward as my parents passed away. And we didn't have that conversation before they passed away as to what's going to happen when they do. And what will Dick do? So I'll share some of those stories as we go forward. But I'm just glad that you're here because this is a really, really important subject, and planning that is sometimes may feel overwhelming, but step by step is the best way to look at it. So today we're going to learn information that will assist you in planning for the future, goals for you and your family member related to retirement, home life, and changes related to aging. Discover the importance of your personal connections and how they can support you in your planning process, and learn about valuable resources available to you and how service providers can assist you. So over the years, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have reached to that point where they are aging and alive through the same amount of time as pretty much the general population. Initially, individuals, their lifespan was about 22 years of age, where the general population was 60 years of age back in 1931. Today, the lifespan for individuals with disabilities are 60 to 70 years of age, and the lifespan for general population is 80. And as we move on, it's going to be even Steven for people who, for all people. So that is something that's really good. 1 in 4 reported that family members are waiting for government-funded services. Medicaid waivers are the most frequently mentioned support for people who were waiting. 1 in 5 have been waiting for more than 10 years, while 25% have been waiting for 1 year or less. So planning, there's no time like the present. You don't want to wait until you are in a place where you need to have services right away. So if you can start making plans now of how you want things to look for your family member as they get older, and as you get older, now's the time.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of lean into that second bullet point about what percentage of people are really being taken care of by an older family member. So as the person with a disability is getting older, so are the parents. And so it's important that we're kind of thinking about where each person in the family is in their lifespan, what the different things that are impacting their lives are, and ask critical questions so that we can kind of help move that process forward. And one of the pre-submitted questions we had is, where do I start? Because it's just so overwhelming. So we're going to start at the beginning.
So benefits of planning for a good life as we age. Well, the first benefit is peace of mind. I think the more that you plan, the more you know. It's going to reduce the fears. It's going to take away, oh my gosh, if I talk about this, it's going to become real. The more you talk about and the more you plan, your confidence is going to increase, because the more you know, the better you can move forward. Planning allows you to use your voice and lead the conversation, because you have an idea of what it is that you and your family member want for their future, that's going to give them a good life, rather than other people telling you this is the way that you want to go, because sometimes there are other options, and we have to, look outside the box of what we can do to create the life for your family member and for yourself. Because we have to look at both lives. You can take advantage of opportunities when it strikes. So if you know what you want, the opportunity comes, you're ready to move forward, bam. And there you are. Sometimes it works that way and sometimes it doesn't. So what does a typical day look like for your loved one? If you're looking at your vision of a good retirement, what life would look like, you can look at that for yourself as well as for your family member, because as your life changes, everybody else in that household lives change, right? It's not necessarily an all or nothing. People don't necessarily want to be home every day, 24/7. Is structure something that's really important to be able to keep you and or your family member happy? If that routine is important, then it's really best to create that routine, especially if someone has been has been working, and then maybe they went to a day program, but having someplace to go, something to do, and knowing what's coming can make everyone feel more comfortable and confident. Understanding and knowing what the available opportunities are that exist, and knowing what you want. Those are all things that are going to help you create your vision for a good day when life changes. What interests do you want to pursue? There's all types of volunteer work to do. There's different exercises class that you can take, or just going for a walk into the park every day on a regular basis. What do you want your social life to look like? What activities do you want to be part of? Knowing what your health is and how do you maintain good health, and know what to expect. Sometimes individuals with different diagnoses, there's certain things within a diagnosis, such as someone with Down syndrome, it can be 67 to 80% of the people with Down syndrome will develop Alzheimer's. So that's something to know, to understand, so that you can really look at the health of your family member and look to see what might be happening, so that you can be on the lookout for those signs. Support groups that might be available, social meetups, being engaged with other people is sometimes the spice of life for many people.
So, this slide is kind of talking about retirement, but really to start at the beginning, wherever you are in your planning journey, our hope is that you're going to think ahead and think, what are the things that make a good quality of life for me? And we'll break that down into some different parts of your life as we go through this. But you may be thinking to yourself, why are we talking about this? Your decisions should be driven by what you see as your perfect future. What is that best life look like down the road? Whether down the road is next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever it is, you have to know where you're going so that you can make the decisions. And so that's why I consider this kind of the beginning of the conversation.
And sometimes people know more of what they don't want than what they do want. And I think a typical thing, you don't want to have less money to live on, because you want to be able to go to different activities, go shopping, engage in leisure activities. And if you don't have the funds to do that, sometimes that will limit those. You don't want to be home alone. What happens when we're home alone? That creates loneliness, and loneliness also leads to mental health concerns, which could take you into depression and different forms of anxiety. A sedentary lifestyle also could create negative healthcare issues. And having nothing to do, having that boredom. Other things that you don't want are to be left within your own means and have no one there to support you and to just be. we want more than that for ourselves and for our family members. So mobility changes occur and behavior concerns can develop. So we can move forward on that. Those are just things that you know that you don't want, because that's going to bring negativity into your life. It's not going to take you to the things that you want. So what's on your mind? Changes in current home life structure routines. Structure are routines that might be changing. Personal age-related changes and personal health. We're looking at a future living environment and personal mortality. So these might be things that are on your mind that say, I need to start really planning for the future. You know, life at home is not going to be the same. So how do I plan so that so that your family member or you are in a place where you are feeling that you can make some changes? Now that I know what I want and what you don't want in the future, how can I successfully move in the right direction? So what this page really is to put things in place that are going to help you get to where you want to go and where you want to be. So some questions that you might be asking are, what resources and funding are available out there? As you're in your spot and you say, okay, I know that I'm going to be retiring or I'm getting older, and I need to start making plans because things can't continue as they are. And you want to plan before a crisis comes. So the Department of Mental Health has Medicaid waiver services. In those services, there are 3 different waivers: Partnership for Hope, Community Waiver, and a Comprehensive Waiver. The first 2, Partnership for Hope and Community Waiver, both have caps, and there's certain information or certain services that you can receive through each of those waivers. But if you're looking for residential support and your family member needs 24/7 services, the comprehensive waiver is what's going to be necessary to be able to gain that. And unless you're able to private pay. Services in residential are not cheap. It's probably over $100,000 a year. So being able to access that waiver is important. Another type of funding that's out there for someone who can live independently in their own home or their own apartment, and they're not living with your family anymore, and they need maybe 10 to 12 hours of support a week. There's funding through the Productive Living Board through the Senate Bill 40 funding. So there are many agencies who provide this support. The St. Louis Arc does, Easter Seals, Sunny Hill, and someone would come and support your family member to gain skills to continue to live independently. DHSS services, but so that service there is for right now, living at home, bringing someone in to do in-home services. Generally, those are in 4-hour increments, who can assist with some light cleaning, hygiene, some grocery shopping potentially, and some companionship as well. The St. Louis Arc, as I said before, we provide services both through the department, that residential services that are 24/7, as well as the Senate Bill 40 board funding. We also have our family supports department, which hopefully you've been talking with Sharon and or some of her navigators to help guide you with some questions that you may have to get you to the resources that you need. Another agency who provides aging supports if you're living in the city, some of the counties Association on Aging with Developmental Disabilities. They do a lot of different meetup groups as well as in-home supports.
So, Marianne, one of the things that I hear a lot is from families that really just don't want somebody to come in their home from Department of Health and Senior Services because it's intrusive or they're concerned about safety issues. Why do you think that's something that a family with an aging parent might want to consider?
I think one thing is that it shows that your family member needs more support that is being able to be provided by people who are living with them, which is not a bad thing. It's reality, which is going to lead you to be able to getting a waiver because it shows the need is there.
I do think sometimes too, people get really very closed in with getting just connections within their family. And so if they were to make a big move to their own home, it could be really challenging if they're not used to having anybody else in their life. So whether it's DHSS or getting a regular respite provider or even attending a sports league where other people are going to be involved, I think it can be really important. I did want to share this resource with you too. Let me see if I can get it to open. I wanted everybody to know that there's a new Gateway resource guide that's available to anybody. It's the link is on the PLB's website, and it's really nice because it's got all the information about who pays for services. It talks about services through all kinds of different types of services. If you're just looking for transportation, you can click on the transportation link and see what are all the different kinds of transportation that might be available, and then it'll take you there by county. Every site, if you need more help, will tell you to go back to talk to a family navigator and take you back to the home page to get the list of navigation resources down here. And these are all the agencies that will provide that one-on-one support. The other resources link covers things that kind of fall outside of those funding categories, like maybe you think assistive technology would be helpful to your family members. So you can see all the many ways that we can access. Ooh, look at all those options. Access its assistive technology for things like equipment, remote monitoring, enabling technology. We're really blessed in our region to have a lot of resources. So I'm going to open the chat. With navigation, do you just choose one agency or call them all to get on the wait list? It's really your choice. It's rare that somebody would want to have navigation with two agencies just because I think that's complex, but call the agency that you're most connected to or that you feel like might best meet your needs. If we don't think we're the experts, if you call us, we'll send you to somebody else. So some of it just depends on your personal taste. All right, back to you, Marianne.
All right. So one of the services that we provide is called Planning Forward. And in our Planning Forward group, it's an 8-session series. And we talk about all the different life domains. I'm not going to get into too much detail now because we are on limited time today. But that Planning Forward group meets with family as well as the individual with the disability so that everybody is learning about some of the questions and the things that you want to think about as you're planning for the future. So healthy living is one area I think that is always in the forefront of making sure that people will understand what the health issues are of your family member. That's something that you want to get a grip on, that you want your family member to know as much as they can about what their health, how they are going to manage that, and how they will access health care. Looking at our medical health, our mental health, behavioral health, as we develop and age, what happens to our health then. For wellness and nutrition opportunities that might be available are things that you all want to consider as you are thinking about what life in the future is going to look like. People with IDD experience different health disparities. I kind of talked a little bit before about individuals with Down syndrome who sometimes will have Alzheimer's, but also some of our individuals have higher rates of obesity, and their general fitness sometimes isn't as good because that just the need and momentum to get out there and to do some fitness is not always their first thing that they want to go and do. And I think especially with our older generation, which I think goes back and forth between general population as well. Looking at prevention, understanding of the nutrition, exercise, and mental health, and understanding what dementia and cognitive decline are and what they look like. We'll talk about, as we kind of move on, we'll talk a little bit about some healthy living, some medical technology that might be helpful for the future as well. And actually for now.
I just want to talk a little bit about, maybe you've got this later in the presentation, but when you're in that planning forward group, who's a part of that, and how do you engage people in that?
So it's both the individual with disability and their family members. The first 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, is specifically guided to the individual with the disability to look at all the different mains that we're going to kind of go through now, so that they're thinking in their minds, one, what it is that they want, because them using their voice and advocating for themselves is what they want their future to look like is important. And because sometimes we've learned that family members think that they know what their family member wants, but sometimes they get surprised. There was
Very true.
a family who had two brothers with disabilities, and they thought they'd want to live together, but they said, no, we really don't want to live together. So you learn different things.
And I do think that for any adult, the more they are able to participate in conversations about their own lives, the more that they have buy-in, so I think about Marianne's brother and how, the difference in when he's making decisions about his own health versus being kind of told what he's going to do. And Marianne, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the decisions he's made because you've been able to talk to him about that.
I guess there's two things that kind of come up are he was having issues with sleep apnea. And, being able to go to the doctor, find that out, and then use a CPAP machine. My other brothers, I have 5 brothers, and Dick's kind of in the middle of them. And they didn't think he'd be able to use a CPAP, but Dick uses CPAP every night. He feels better. He knows he feels better. And he's really proud, and he'll tell me, I've used my CPAP machine. That's really great. Another thing is he's using a recumbent stair stepper, which is helping him continue with his health. He was having some issues with mobility, and he has been able to lose some weight. He's become stronger. And brother Tim, who's retired, we consider him as the personal trainer. Dick will only do the exercises for him. He says, I'm working with my trainer and nobody else. So that's just the way it is. He's involved, he understands, and he very much makes decisions and wants to understand and know what's going on.
Thanks for sharing your personal story. I think that's kind of the messaging that we're hoping to get through to everybody, is that, engaging in these conversations as a family lets you think about what your hopes are, what you really want to happen, maybe what your concerns are that you really want to avoid, and then begin the conversation about goal setting. Dick wanted to still be able to travel and socialize a lot. So he had some reasons to get on that recumbent bike. But if we would have tried to get him to go out and walk, I think that would not have been as successful because he was really nervous about it. So that's such a great example of how we can move forward through this planning process.
Community living, there's where to live. I think sometimes some individuals want to age in place. They want to stay in the home that they've lived in. And if they have the ability to be able to do that, my brother Dick is one of those people. He didn't want to move out. He wanted to stay. My brother Jeff moved in with him after my folks passed away. And they're living harmoniously together, which is really great. And they're both happy. They both get time away from each other. But what are the other opportunities that are out there, whether it's assisted living? There's trying to get a provider such as the St. Louis Arc with the waiver services, and kind of just looking forward of where your family member wants to live. Emergency planning is very difficult. So again, I applaud you all for being here because planning ahead of time, even though you can't always grab what it is that you want, at least you know what you want, you know what you need to do, and it gives you peace of mind so that when the time is right and the funding has come, then you can move forward. Transportation
Can
is,
I jump in just briefly about emergency planning?
of course.
I just wanted to share a story about one of the families we were able to support at the Ark. It was just a mom and her adult son, and mom was quite nervous about the future, but also really reluctant to involve other people in their lives. She didn't have any other family and felt like it was really intrusive. But as I got to know them, they had really strong relationships with their church. And it turned out that her son was very involved in the church, and that there was already a church member that did something with him on the weekends, in addition to attending church services on Sunday. So over a period of time, she decided to gather the church family together to do some emergency planning. And it wasn't about who's going to step in and support my son long term. It was, if something happens to me and I have to go to the hospital in an ambulance, who's going to know how to get into my house and be there when my son gets home from work? Who's going to know, the things about his, where his medication is? Who's going to know where the phone list is to contact the Department of Mental Health caseworker or the St. Louis Arc? And I was really so pleased with them, and the church folks were great. And it turns out they had not a couple things. They had questions. They were really interested in being more involved, but there were areas where each of them had questions, and sometimes another person at the church could answer the question. So they were nervous about different things. So it was really a great space for them to have a really honest conversation. And she found out that some of them, once they understood what kind of supports were needed, were willing to have him spend the night with them over the weekend, which was a really nice chance for him to see what it was like to stay away from home, away from mom, and for her to get a break. So that's just one example. None of those people were going to be his lifelong care provider, but they were all in it to support him through any kind of a crisis.
Safety and security. I think that's one of the other things that are always in the forefront of my mind when I'm supporting anyone, and when something new is coming upon. So financial, I don't know what information you all have, but having a special trust fund, if you have money and you're putting money away for your family member, assuring that that money is in a protected account, a trust, so that doesn't get in the way of your family member getting Medicaid or other benefits that they would be eligible for. So legal, you're probably looking at potentially looking at power of attorney, so that if your family member can't make decisions, that there's somebody there who can for both financial and healthcare. Some individuals, guardianship is important for them. And even when people have guardians, the opportunity for them to be involved in decision-making and understand what's going on to the extent of their abilities is something that is good. for them to be involved in those decisions. And then there is supported decision making. So an individual who may have a power of attorney that they're making their decisions because they're capable of doing so, but they may have someone that they're going to reach out when they're making different decisions that are really high level decisions that has something to do with maybe financial or medical. For instance, one of my colleagues always uses the example of buying a car. So if I'm going to buy a car, what kind of support do I need to do that? I don't know all that much about how to talk to the different salespeople. How do you get your best deals? But in talking about the different kinds of cars that are out there. So that support helps somebody make a decision. Same thing for medical decisions. Sometimes medical is just when you have a acute situation, which could be cancer, it could be anything, but when you have someone else who's there, who's also using their ears to help you understand what's going on, so their ears, and to ask questions, that's going to help you better understand as well.
Also in the legal realm, I know most of you probably have already taken the responsibility to have a will, making sure you're updating that will regularly. And something we really encourage people to include with their will is a letter of intent. But a letter of intent is really a more detailed breakdown of all the important information that you might need to share about your family member. So it could have all the important phone contacts, all the doctors and other providers that might be connected to them, but also nuanced things like how do they like to spend their holidays, and who are the extended family that it's important that they call on the phone monthly or quarterly. How do they like their coffee in the morning? I mean, depending on who it is, I sure want to have somebody who can help me make my coffee properly.
Home safety is another area to kind of give consideration to. Can they evacuate during, if there was a fire, tornado, earthquake, of assuring that people understand what your family member is able to do. Also that home safety, if they are living in a home with limited support, so that one, they know who they can call if there is an issue. And, even as we age, you're looking at that home safety of making sure that fall hazards are not there. There's so many pieces there that I don't want to keep going on. Community safety, that's going out in the community and making sure that people are safe. A lot of people also have cell phones, and/or on computers, and how do people stay safe in those types of environments as well. Social and spirituality, keeping in touch with the people that you love, knowing, that other piece that Sharon was talking about with the letter of intent, of knowing who those important people are in your family member's life, so that they can maintain that contact. Opportunities that are out there to help your family member make friends and maintain their friendships. Whether that is something that could be on social media, it could be going to, one of the guys that I used to support used to go to Steak and Shake, and they'd go there every Wednesday for breakfast and coffee, and all of a sudden he wasn't there. And when they did go back again, they were like, where were you? We were so worried and thought something happened. So, creating those opportunities for your family member and other people to understand what those are if your family member can't say. Hobbies or interests that you can pursue in their spare time, in your spare time. Do you need extra support to fully participate at the faith community that you are part of? And as you're getting older, is there someone in the congregation who might be able to help out with transportation?
We have a question, Marianne, so I'm going to stop before we go to the next
Good.
screen. And it really was about what kind of opportunities we have to help people take a deeper dive into some of these subjects. You particularly asked about safety, and I'm going to answer the question a little bit more generically, and Marianne, feel free to chime in as well. With the Planning Forward group, each of these topics gets an entire session. So instead of us giving you an overview for an hour, you would spend an entire hour in that planning group talking about all the issues related to safety and security. Towards the end of this presentation, we'll give you a sneak peek at what the Google site looks like that we use to walk through the different kinds of issues related to safety, and not only ask questions, but show some of the resources that are available. You'll also find, if you go to our YouTube page, that our videos are divided by these same categories that Marianne's talking about tonight. So if you click on the videos for safety and security, you'll find information about special needs trust, decision-making, financial wellness, safety, on cyber safety. So you name it, we've got all that kind of stuff up there. And then just full disclosure, a lot of the resources we're sharing with you tonight are really ways that we've figured out how to use tools that are part of Charting the Life course, which is a planning and problem solving framework that was developed at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. And within the Charting the Life course framework, they have these really cool books where they ask kind of open-ended questions to help you think about certain things. So if the questions we're asking are sparking you to think about this more, that's another thing you can do, is go to lifecoursetools.com and look at the book of questions, or I think that would be in the foundational tools section on the website. You'd be able to find some kind of questions to guide your conversation.
Oh, daily life and employment. So a lot of people right now, they might be employed, whether that is competitively working at a sheltered workshop. Some individuals go to some type of day service where they are engaged in the community and or potentially slowing down that aging with empowerment type of program, where they do more activities that are really directed towards the interests of the individuals who attend that program. So looking at and knowing what people's hobbies are there new hobbies that they want to engage in? Are there new interests they want to learn more about? Going to classes and or community centers where they have different activities and learning opportunities is a great resource. You know, is there help that's needed with budgeting or paying bills? So knowing, you know, what they're able to do, how much money they have, what are the free things that exist out there, and what kind of support does someone need to pay their bills? When you're looking at retirement, you know, can you afford to retire? These are questions I ask myself all the time. Do I have the funds and the support to replace my income if I do retire? And what are those things that I need the money for? And how can you switch things around in life so that you're still happy? What does my perfect day or week look like? So, you know, that is, everybody's different. And knowing what the routines and the opportunities that are available, or to be able to establish that routine. I think we talked a little earlier about, for some people, having structure in their day is really important. And without that structure, it could reduce their mental health. So you see how one domain builds on top of another, and having your whole life set up the way that you want it to ensure that those certain things that are important to you are happening. Because if they don't, then that leads us down the rabbit hole of things that we don't want in our life. Can technology assist me to live as independently as possible? One area in one of our classes, a family member was talking about, or actually the individual was saying, you know, the one thing that always drives me crazy, drives my mom crazy, is that I can't remember to take my medicine. So that's a big issue. So they looked into pill dispenser. So all the medications are put in this pill for the dispenser for the whole week. The alarm will go off when it's time to take that medication. You program all this in there. And then until that medication has been taken, the alarm will continue to ring. It can also be set up where it through Bluetooth, that if it can connect to somebody else's phone that's telling them that, hey, Joe didn't take his medication, he might need a little prompt to make that happen. And this pill dispenser really worked for this individual. And, his mornings are that much faster. He's not waiting on his mom. His mom isn't waiting on him. It's more so mom was waiting on him, I think, to make sure that the pills were going to be taken. And they both could go on. But there is remote monitoring that's out there. So someone who may be living in an apartment may have a little, maybe a little afraid, and or want to have that extra sense of security, where remote monitoring puts sensors in the house, and somebody is watching the sensors, and they kind of get a pattern of what your family member might be doing. A good thing would be, the first thing that kind of comes to mind is at nighttime, your Joe might sleep all the way through the night most nights. Sometimes he'll get up, that shows he gets up, he goes to the bathroom, he comes back. They can't see, they just have a sensor that you can tell where the individual is going. And if he was up 4 or 5 times one night, there's like, okay, what's going on? Something is not right. It could be that there's a medical issue with like maybe a urinary tract infection. So it helps detect that symptom and something to look into. Or it could be that something else was going on, which I don't know what that might be, but it could be many different things. And something of that really is nothing, but maybe he just wasn't sleeping well that night and he got up to go watch TV for a little while. Skills or experiences. So we're looking at volunteerism. That's another way of giving back to the community. Skills that you have or experiences that can benefit your community. Going out and doing volunteer work is a great thing for everyone.
Thank you. I do want to comment on technology before we move on, only in saying that, I think sometimes people are afraid to use technology as an alternative to staffing support. But the reality is that our staffing situation is such that it can really be restrictive to people if they have to rely on a staff person to do certain things. So the more that we can help them be independent with technology, then we can target when they do need paid staffing support. And even if you have staffing support, you can be more independent sometimes with technology. So I just want you to know that in the state of Missouri, we're a technology first state, and whether you have funding through the Department of Mental Health or you don't, there are multiple ways to get assessments for technology, access to free or reduced fee technology, and training. So it's really good to know about that.
Advocacy engagement. So we talked about a little bit of advocacy earlier. On here it says leading my planning. So that's your maybe planning meetings, the support meetings. A lot of individuals have a individual support plan that's annually, and it's really important that each person is part of those planning meetings, and to their ability to be able to lead that is important. It's the same thing at the very beginning where we said that peace of mind, being able to use your voice, because the more information you have, you can guide what it is that you want. And that's important for each individual. Am I interested in volunteering or giving back to the community in other ways? Are there any causes or issues I'm passionate about? There are many, there's a People's First group who meets on a regular, I think a monthly basis, and they talk about issues that are important to them, so that they can be out there using their voices to help make change in the world. Do I have support to express my political beliefs if they are important to me? Are people voting? Who goes out and votes and knows everything about an individual who's out there to vote for? No, most of the people who vote, they know like this much. But if somebody wants to vote, it's really important that they get that opportunity to do so. So what are the next steps? Joining a family support or peer support group to help you plan for the future. There are different groups that are out there. We have a caregiver of older adults group that meets once, I think it's the third Friday of every month. And it's facilitated by a staff member, but the discussion it's all the families there. We learn so much from each other about different experiences, issues that people will come upon that other people are just getting to. So we can, you can guide other people and learn from other people. That's, a big part of networking and being able to share your experiences. Creating an emergency plan for your family member. So if something would happen to you, that letter of intent. That letter of intent is has a lot of information that's in it that can help guide if there is an emergency, that a plan can already be written out, and a lot of information that's going to really be beneficial for your family member to continue continuity for their life. Pursuing resources to make your dreams a reality. What is out there? What do you need? Start looking for those resources now so that you can meet your dreams. Developing relationships with additional supporters. There's a lot of family members that are out there you can develop relationships with. I would say that our Planning Forward group, the 8-week series, there's a lot of sharing of resources that go on and on many relationships that are developed as well.
I'm going to jump in here and just say we did have a pre-submitted question about how to engage siblings. And I think that all the things that we've talked about tonight, having these open conversations about what people want and what they don't want, is really can be a nice place to start with a brother or sister, because it's not really so driven by the things that are going to get done. It's more conversational about, what do you think Joe wants to have happen in his life as he moves forward? What would you like to see his living environment to be like? And I think finding ways to engage people, families tend to either assume a sibling's going to do everything and the person with the disability is going to move in with them, or they don't want to engage them at all. And most brothers and sisters say, I want to know how I can be a support. Even if I can't have my sibling live with me, I want to be able to help them in different aspects of their lives. So don't be afraid of the conversation.
Yeah, don't be afraid of the conversation. I'll just say that when I was younger, and I wish I'd had the conversation with my parents, but I didn't. I was afraid of the conversation. It never came up. Well, it came up once. We won't go into that. Yeah, I'll just say my other brother said, Mom, don't worry about it. We'll take care of things when you're gone. Well, we have, and that's good, but I wish we had had the conversation.
Yeah, this link isn't working. This is what one of the pages on the Google site we used for Planning Forward looks like. And it scrolls down many, many pages to talk about community living. So there's an opportunity for families to learn together. There's an opportunity for families to have conversations with each other and answer some questions. And then we also, at the bottom of each page, have many resources of what is out there in our community that you can find. We really, really do believe this is super important. So glad you're here today. When you're ready to take the first step, whatever that is, feel free to reach out to the St. Louis ARC family support team. Marianne's a part of that team in her role as a residential navigator. We're really glad to get to know your family. So thank you very much.